Hey folks, Thursday, a little bit late leaving work. It's nearly 5 o'clock and it's bank holiday tomorrow. That sounded a bit feeble, didn't it? I've been listening this week to various news outlets, real news outlets, not the fake ones like BBC and Sky, but real ones. And as long as you take them all, cross-reference them with each other, and you can tell if they're getting their news from the same sources. It's like all the lamestream media get all their news from the same three sources. So Associated Press, Reuters, and I can't remember the other one. But the Independents, sometimes they'll reference a story in, one of the newspapers or some other junk toilet paper, but mainly they'll use that to do some real research, and that always comes to a different conclusion. Well, that's not difficult, is it? But I just wanted to talk about the oil price a little bit. The oil price has rocketed in the last 2 weeks. It's gone up tuppence. It cost me a tank full of diesel, which is about 50 quid a week to get to work. So that's just put my bill up. It doesn't sound like much, does it? Couple of quid or whatever. But then when you add it up over the year, plus the state of the roads, which means the car is getting hell beaten out of it every single day. You come along with me, so you can see how bad the roads are. We've got to have MOTs to make sure the car's roadworthy, but the roads aren't worthy for the cars. And that's because they're all owned by the World Bank. And the World Bank is obviously bankers, so they just want to make a profit. I saw a news thing about fires on Bodmin Moor. I think it was on Sputnik, under the European section. And they've had some fires there. But when something like that happened, it always used to be excuse me, that it's been reported to the news outlets that the police say blah blah blah, and now it's the Roads Policing Partnership, which basically means that they've merged the Devon and Cornwall for-profit corporate police force with the Dorset corporate police force. So what that basically means is, across their business, their money-making for-profit business of enforcing acts and statutes and taking everybody's rights away from them, they've merged things like back office stuff and training and all this kind of stuff, so they can increase profits. Oh, and they also screw you in the council tax. So we're paying private corporations to make an absolutely shit job of supposedly protecting us. So, but this every single time, right? If you go on YouTube, you'll see Rob S. It's part of the common law courts thing. He's been found guilty this week. And then you got Mark Steele last week. He's a 5G campaigner and microwave weapons expert, telling the truth about the absolutely lethal 5G transmitters in your smart meters and on your street lamps. Found guilty of harassment because he was found innocent, and the judge in the first trial, the council were trying to send it, put a gagging order on him, and the judge threw it out and said he's an expert witness, and he absolutely ripped the council's so-called experts to pieces. So they couldn't have that, so they drafted in a different judge and found him guilty. He could have had the best defense. Well, he did have the best defense because he had all the evidence. He was telling the truth. So you got Rob S. at the common law courts, found guilty. He was telling the truth, being honest with people, exposing the fraud. You got Mark Steele, exposing the genocide agenda, which is coming if we don't stop 5G. Then you've got Julian Assange, who's done nothing more than been a good journalist and embarrassed the Democrats and Hillary Clinton in the States. And they're going to hang him out to dry. And don't believe all this QAnon shit. You know, waiting for somebody else to do something is going to be all of our downfalls. We just can't. You just can't wait for other people to do our job for us. You know, we've got to start standing up to this. The corporates are losing control and they can't figure out why the people in Westminster who assume they have authority over us are they're not even panicking because they think everything's still under control. The Brexit betrayal, irrespective of whether you voted in or out, it really doesn't matter anymore, because what it's shown is that basically the people in Westminster have said, fuck all of you, we're doing what we want, what our banking masters tell us to do, what our European masters tell us to do. See, the problem is they've been caught between the devil and the deep blue sea because they've already given away our armed forces. So how can you possibly leave the European Union and not take your armed forces with you? You can't, can you? So one way or the other, they had to find a way to get out of Brexit. And all these votes and all this crap, you know, all this infighting about, you know, oh, he said this and during the campaign and they said that during the campaign. It's just divide and conquer. That's, you know, standard issue for governments. And oh, excuse me, just going to take a bit of a drink. And I suppose when you think about it, I mean, Theresa May doesn't give a shit, does she? She's ex-Goldman Sachs, I think, or one of those big banks. I can't remember which one. I don't really care. She's always been a Remainer, and she always is. She only ever really reads out what she's given by the EU. And that's where all this crap came from. That's where this backstop came from, and the Northern Ireland border problem came. There wouldn't be a problem. You've got the Irish Taoiseach, the Prime Minister, is an absolute out-and-out globalist. So he was told by his German masters, the same as May, to throw a spanner in the works and kick up fuck, because the only way they could really throw a spanner in the works was Northern Irish border. So anyway, you know, now they're talking about yet another referendum, which, despite what people say, oh well, yeah, the support's going to be even more for leave because we've been treated so shabbily by the European Union and our own leaders, alleged leaders, should I say. But whatever people vote, this time they'll make sure they rig it. They rigged it last time and there was such a landslide. I haven't got any proof of that, of course. It just seems very strange to me that everyone I've spoken to, obviously a few exceptions, but the majority of people I've spoken to all said they voted out. And quite a few people recently who, because people wouldn't admit it back then. I did. I was proud to say that I voted out. I still am. I don't want to be part of a communist satanic super state. Equally, I don't believe in any kind of government or religion or money for that matter. It's all control. So this is all a bit of a sideshow, but they've handled this so badly. They were just expecting the people to just roll over, and we're not going to do that. I don't know if Farage is just taking another business opportunity like he did last time. You know, he walked away from UKIP when it needed him most, and then he went off to America, didn't he, to see Orange Man. I don't know why, if that was for money or what, but that obviously failed because he came back. Now he started up a new party, and already it's showing close to the Conservatives. I mean, Labour is somewhere in the doldrums, up that back somewhere, because Corbyn's never put his stamp of authority on the Labour Party. He's probably, although I can't stand communists, he seems like a nice fella. At least he's got convictions, and being a nice fella doesn't necessarily mean you've got the right policies. They're two different things. But I think Farage could be just in it because he's got nothing better to do, or maybe he's realised his mistake and he could have saved us all this pain if he'd have just stayed on. If he'd have stayed on, and well, he would have probably been in government by now, because nobody would have taken any notice of the other two parties. Now here we are fighting another European election. What a surprise. So we've got an absolute complete breakdown in law and order in the courts and the police service. They're not even making any secret of the fact they only act for corporations. They're only interested in profit, and the police are only interested in keeping the corporations where they are, keeping the money, keeping the slaves where they are. So as long as we pay the bills, they'll be fine. Well, I'm afraid people don't work like that. You can enslave a nation for short periods. But the Germans found this out during the Second World War with the losses that they were receiving from what the government would call terrorists, whereas the people being enslaved were called freedom fighters. Think about that. Think about those terms. Think about what's just happened in Syria. And once you start thinking about it in those terms, what is the, who are the terrorism? I think the definition of terrorism is achieving political aims through violence. Well, the only people that seem to be doing that on a regular basis are governments. So we're living in very interesting times, and I think this may well be a catalyst for See, don't let any... Yeah, I'm just thinking as I go along, so I apologise for the gaps. But just suppose this, right? We're the 7th biggest economy on the planet, right? We're still... Our security services create regime change and economic advantage all over the world. They've got one of the most powerful security services in the world. I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm just saying. So even though the British people might not get any respect anymore where they did, and that's been destroyed by governments. What hasn't been destroyed by government is the power that the British government has got. Now, I saw a thing today, and there was a lefty saying a professor in an American university giving a lecture, and all his Antifa and lefty students have been indoctrinated in his brain laundry. We're all cheering and that, and they were saying we need a revolution and all the rest of it. No, we don't. That's communism. The Bolshevik Jews had one of those in 1917, and there's 100 million skulls to prove it. And the Chinese had one, and there's 75 million skulls to prove it. What really needs to happen is non-compliance. And it's like the charging of the machine guns, because you can't, well, you can take down a few, but you can't take down everybody. And it's and that's what's going to happen if we use violence. All they'll do is roll out troops, and it'll end up in a lot of bloodshed, because we've been disarmed, as have most nations. They've just done it in New Zealand with a false flag there. Now, I don't mean with a false flag. Have a look at some of the stuff that visit a site called thecrowhouse.com, and he's analysed the video footage and everything from the mosque shootings. And yes, there were shootings, but there was government cars in the car park, stuff like that. So there we go. You know, political change or disarming the public by violence, terrorism, and that's what's happening. You know, Q says, oh, you know, they're going to extradite Assange to the US, and he's going to be taken to court, and then he's going to be found not guilty, and it'll exonerate the president, and everybody will be happy. What a load of shite. They're going to take him there, and they're going to hang him out to dry, in my opinion. So, there we are. Complete breakdown of law and order in this country. Our political scum. Remember, the scum always floats to the top. We need to do away with government. We need to do away with religion, and we need to do away with money, because it's all control. Man, under God, is quite capable of looking after himself. If we all looked after each other, we wouldn't need money. We don't need guns, except for specific purposes. We certainly don't need standing armies. You know, it's illegal to have a standing army in the UK. every year, or every couple of years, I can't remember now, the remembrancer who sits behind the Speaker's chair has to tell the Speaker that we're still at war. That gives the government then a right to raise an army and to charge taxes. That's the only way they can legally, in inverted commas, raise taxes. So we're not only bankrupt as a country, we're also at permanent war, and we have been since 1666. Oh, there's a number for you. So since William III, William of Orange, came over here and oh bugger, what's it called? I can't remember now. Basically took over the throne. It'll pop into my head in a minute, I'll mention it. And ever since then, we've basically been paying taxes and all that. You know, there was no income tax in the US until the turn of the 20th century. So what we've had is the taxation of the population since the 1900s, at least. And that's been by a cultural Marxism. That's been taken to the nth degree by allowing the corporations to take over everything. Government, the police, the army, everything. Civil service, it's all for-profit companies. Even your local MP is registered as a limited company, limited liability. So if that's the case, corporations and that all run on contract, okay? Can't do anything without a contract because it's a dead entity. Right, I'm going to go for this. So you have to agree to the contract. Contract has to give due consideration to both sides. Both sides have to get something out of it. But you try withdrawing your consent from our government, from the system. It's all hidden. They've deliberately hidden it because they don't want you leaving, because you're a slave and they want to tax you slave. If people knew they could opt out, people would be opting out willy-nilly, and then who'd pay for all those duck houses and expenses? On average, an MP is now claiming £220,000 a year in expenses. Yeah, so much for the expenses scandal, eh? But that's alright. What we'll do is this is a standard procedure. Problem, reaction, solution. So they had a small crisis and they sacked one. I think there was one Labour MP who got done. He was probably offered a huge amount of money to take the fall, or he really pissed somebody off, so they framed him, one or the other. And then what they do is they change the rules. They bring in a new quango, which basically allows them to claim twice as much expenses without any kind of comeback. So people, or the corporatists in Parliament, think we're all stupid. You know, well, I mean, since the Brexit vote, they've all been calling us ill-educated plebs and, you know, scum and all the rest of it. But see, they've forgotten that they work for us, that they're supposed to be administering. We put them there to administer. But, oh no. Not according to them. In fact, I can't remember which MP it was, but she openly turned round and said that, look at this tonight. She wasn't there to represent the people, and you only got to look at Anna Soubry. Her constituents voted by a massive majority to leave the European Union, and she's leading the charge to stay. So she, she hasn't even got the good manners to hold a by-election, because she knows she'd lose it. So she's there, she's got no mandate, and she's just taking the money, and she's going directly against the will of the people. Well, the last time this happened, we cut the head off a king, and we had a Puritan called Oliver Cromwell in charge. And he reinstated Parliament after a period of time, left it a little while, and then he had to go back to Parliament because within a year or two they'd gone back to their old ways, and he sent the troops into Parliament. He went in himself, kicked them all out at sword point, and ran the country for 15 years. And apart from his puritanical religious views, the actual country ran beautifully in that period of time. A peaceful, prosperous country. And that's what we need again. We just need some administrators. We need all kinds of corporations and profit taken out of the system completely. And we need to take out this religious control system that feeds it. And let's face it, you might go to your mosque or your church or your synagogue on a Sunday or Saturday or whatever it is. These people who talk about religion go. But in the real world, when they go home, what do they live by those laws? Do they go to their local MP constituent office and say, I'm not voting for you next time because you're allowing the Bank of England, which is a private bank, you're borrowing money off of them at usury, and that's why we're all so poor, because the country's not printing its own money? Well, they're not going to their MP and saying, you're taking us into a legal war and I want you to stop it. But even if they are, their MP's just turning around telling them, well, I don't give a fuck what you say anyway. So even the religionists and the government and all the rest of it, there's wedges being driven into all of it. Well, I'm going to get off topic now, but it leads down the path of one world government. Now, I think that's an absolutely brilliant idea if it's just there for administration. There's no need for an army. There's no need for the military. There's no need for religion if we have a one world government which just looks after organising. If there's no money, remember, then there's no profit to be made from it, so people will look after other people for love, and in return everybody will grow a little bit and work a little bit when they feel like it. And you'll always get some people who'll try and take advantage, but then it's up to everyone else to deal with them in a fair and equitable way. And I don't mean by executions and all this kind of stuff. I mean by social ostracisation, or whatever. That leads back to natural law, where it says, you know, if a violence is done to you, then you can defend yourself with force. So, in the old days, in Saxon times, if you killed somebody, it was up to the other families, the families of the person you killed, to decide your fate. And they didn't always say, well, off with his head. Sometimes they were made to work in the fields for him for a period of time, or they were put in stocks for a period of time and socially ostracised. And, you know, they didn't have money, they had tally sticks. I've got to research into tally sticks because it intrigues me. I haven't really done much with it. So, but it worked. But it wasn't for profit. So you can understand, you don't need a monetary system. You don't need to make a profit. You need enough to live, and that's it. And if you want something nicer, then maybe you can do something for somebody else that'll get you something nicer. And people will always make things. People always make nice things. People will do nice things because people are inherently good. And since we've all got that God spark in us, because we're all one with the Creator, we're all part of the God consciousness. And we need to take this veil of lies and secrecy and that away from take this veil of lies and secrecy away, and then people will see. And then people will see that the only way, that the righteous way to live, is by being at one through being at one, opening your mind to being at one with God, aligning yourself with the frequency. We're being kept at a really low frequency at the moment because the whole system's based on fear. Fear is base consciousness. That is why they put the black and white squares on police uniforms. The uniforms are black. They used to be blue. Now they're black because blue was for a constable and black is for an officer. Right, so it's a corporate officer in black. Notice that they've got a black Union flag. What's that about? That's a corporate logo. That isn't the Union flag. So I think I'm going to stop there because I'm going to lose me track a bit. So anyway, just have a think about what I say. Play it a couple of times because the more I hear, the more obvious it is what we've got to do. Peaceful non-compliance, everyone. Or whatever you feel safe and comfortable doing. I'm not advocating any form of violence at all. Because violence is what, fear and violence is what Satanism is. That's what the governments use. And if you do what they do, then that's exactly what you'll become. So, anyway, have a brilliant weekend off if you're not working, and I'll speak to you all next week maybe. I might even do a video over the weekend. We're spending some time down by the river. So, anyway, take care for now. God bless you all.